The coronavirus continues to weigh on the global economy, and the IMF is just out with its latest World Economic Outlook. It now expects global GDP to plunge 4.9% this year. Brian Cheung is here to walk us through this one. Good morning, Brian. They're warning at the IMF that this could get worse as COVID cases rise, right?
Good morning, Alexis. That's exactly what the International Monetary Fund is saying with its update on its World Economic Outlook. These are projections that the international body publishes with regards to what it expects to see in terms of global growth around the world, saying, though, that efforts to contain the virus may not be going as well as it had originally hoped when it provided its last projections back in April. As you mentioned, the World Economic Outlook saying that the global economy will contract by 4.9% in 2020. That's a remarkable downgrade from the 3% contraction that it had presented back in its April projections. Now, keep in mind that this is now officially the worst print in this report's history. And not only is it the worst print, but it's also the first time in the IMF's history that it's projecting negative growth in every region of the world. The reasons why: it says, A, consumption and services are dropping beyond expectations as the containment efforts continue around the world. And then secondly, the catastrophic hit to the global labor market, which is really quite worse than the IMF had originally projected. Now, if you look country by country, the United States is projected to contract by 8%. That is a downgrade from the 5.9% contraction number that the IMF had floated back in April. Other regions of the world, the Euro area, projected to decline by 10.2% in 2020. Same with the United Kingdom, 10.2%, in addition to a large downgrade for India, which in its April report was actually projected to grow in the year 2020, now projected to contract by 4.5% as we see the containment issues continue in that particularly dense country. China, however, one of the few countries in the report that is expected to still grow in 2020. Keep in mind, most of the hit that they saw was in the first quarter of 2020. They are still projected to grow by 1% in 2020, still quite a downtick from the 6% GDP pace that it had been going at for the years prior to COVID-19. Overall, though, the IMF is still projecting a rebound in 2021, saying the global economy should be able to bounce back by 4.5% in 2021. In the United States, they say it'll expect it to rebound by 4.5% in 2021 as well. Alexis?
And Brian, interesting in this report, and maybe it should serve as a wake-up call to a lot of investors sending tech stocks up to all-time highs. The IMF warning about greater scarring because of the COVID-19 pandemic and extreme poverty.
Yes, well, the IMF, keep in mind, in conjunction with the World Bank, is really tasked with watching and making sure that a lot of those countries around the world that are particularly in poverty, those that are defined as those emerging developing countries, are able to share in global growth if there is a healthy scenario. Now, of course, this COVID-19 crisis is something that's been affecting every region of the world, as we saw from the numbers that they just released. Now, when it comes to the help that the IMF and the World Bank have been providing, there have been a number of countries that have had to turn to the World Bank for emergency loans during this time to try to bridge themselves and make sure that they can maintain their health capacities. And as you mentioned, Brian, the economic implications of that are longer term. The scarring could come from productivity being damaged as supply chains around the world get disrupted. That affects a lot of those countries in which they rely heavily on manufacturing and exporting to other countries of the world. So the IMF and the World Bank probably expected to continue to push on that emergency aid to those countries as this crisis appears to be taking longer than the IMF maybe had originally hoped back in April.
Hey investors, Zach Guzman here. Are you interested in learning more about the markets and getting the latest financial news? Well, then click right here to subscribe to our Yahoo Finance YouTube channel. Get the latest up-to-the-minute market analysis, big interviews in the world of finance, and information on how to manage your money every day wherever you are.